Hey there, everyone. My name is Brian Swayze, and I'm the associate producer at Ogunquit Playhouse. And we're continuing our checking in series with director, choreographer, song and dance man extraordinaire, Mr. Jeffrey Demon is here. How are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
I am so good. I'm good. I'm so happy to see you. I just said it's
It's
so
great to
great to
see your
see a
face.
new
Yeah,
face. A
totally.
new face today. It's very exciting.
Yeah, yeah. It
Um,
looks like you've got some good weather there too.
well, it's an illusion, I think. It's cloudy outside.
Good lighting.
I
Good
think it's
lighting.
good lighting and blinds on my windows that's making it look like it's sunny outside. So, but
Perfect.
it's all good. It's all good. So,
Yeah.
first of all, I know you're not in New York City right now. So, where are you? Where in the world is?
Um, I am down in Jacksonville Beach, Florida.
Okay.
My girlfriend Sophie and I came down here pretty early on. She's immunocompromised, so we felt like the smartest decision was to get out of New York City. I think I can't remember the exact date that the restaurants and businesses were shut down. We left basically the Saturday after that happened.
Okay.
And we came down here. We've been staying with her parents, who have a place down here that has allowed all of us to. It's a very entrepreneurial household. Everyone has their own thing and their own businesses and their own side hustles, and so it's a place that has given us the ability to all do that
Yeah.
separately
Hmm.
in different spaces, without kind of overlapping or being on top of each other.
Yeah.
And her parents have been incredibly generous and supportive and welcoming the whole time. It's been really, really great. We are incredibly grateful that we had the ability to do this, so that we could not only keep ourselves safe, but keep our
Yeah.
loved ones safe as well. I wanted to go home to my mom in
Uh-huh.
Buffalo, but she's in age-wise, she's in the danger zone. So wanted to make sure that we were being
Yeah.
safe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is she in a performer as well, or what's her
No,
background?
she used to be a stage manager.
Okay.
She's actually a health coach, a functional medicine health coach.
Okay.
And she's able to do her business remotely from wherever she needs to do it.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, my
Yeah.
parents were down in North Fort Myers till about a month ago, and they drove back up to Maine. They drove back up in the midst of the madness, but they are safe
Oh,
in Saco now, and they're home. So
good,
yeah,
good, 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 good.
yeah, it was touch and go for a couple of days because they hadn't made hotel reservations and they couldn't
Yeah.
stop in Delaware, and it was a thing. But they made it back, so they're home.
They didn't do the whole drive all the way through, did they?
No, they broke it up in
Oh,
like
okay.
3 days,
Whew.
so they stopped
Yeah.
twice. So we just had to figure
Okay.
out two places for them to stay, but
Yeah.
it was a challenge.
Yeah. When we came down, we were I wanted to try to do as much of the drive as I could in one fell swoop, but we ended up about 9 o'clock at night in South Carolina, and I was like, I gotta stop.
That's it.
I gotta
Yeah,
stop. So we actually found a hotel that was very, very open and honest about
yeah,
how they were, what
right.
they were doing. They
Yeah,
gave you a pamphlet. It was really great.
yeah,
It was really helpful and made you feel safe. And clearly we were, because
yeah.
or at least we don't think that we ever
Right.
contracted anything. So
Yeah, and that's what I was doing with them is I was like, you got to call ahead and check in. There's literally a vacuum happening outside my door right now. They never clean, like, it's so rare that they vacuum that hallway, and it's happening.
yeah, they were
Welcome.
literally like, he's doing something on Zoom. I think we should clean today.
Right, just vacuum the hallway right now. Welcome to checking in at home.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I had called ahead and was asking about cleaning procedures and all those things, and so, but yeah, and
Yeah.
then they got to Delaware, and Delaware wasn't allowing anyone from out of state to even stay in hotels, so they had to skip
Right.
past Delaware. So, but like I said, they're home now, and they're in Maine, and they're good. So,
Yeah.
um, So, but back to you. You've been down in Florida since
Mhm.
about. I mean, it was like March 13th ish was around when they started
Yeah,
shutting everything down.
yeah. We got down here the 21st
Oh,
of
okay.
March. Yeah,
All right.
so it was pretty soon after that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, and waited, quarantined. We've really been trying to act like we were in New York while we
Yeah.
were down here, observing those rules
Yeah.
and staying away from people, doing all of that, only going to the grocery store when we needed to.
Yeah.
Um, and just out of respect, for our friends in New York
Right.
City who are dealing with so much, but also just to do what's right, for us. So
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. It's been, I mean, we have a place in the city, and we came out. We left like after March 13th, and we've gone back a
okay,
couple times just to get a few things. But we're in New Jersey now, and we just, it's nice to have a little more air to breathe and a little more space.
yeah, yeah.
And I can't, we've.
Well,
Go ahead.
and what I'm sorry, one of the other considerations was, we could see where the numbers were going to be
Where
going,
it was
and
going.
if we did contract it, we felt as though if we weren't in New York City, we wouldn't be putting an extra burden on the
Right.
hospitals and the
Yep.
doctors and
No, it's
and
true.
and being not being that kind of a burden on the city. So
Yeah.
all kinds of all
Yeah.
kinds
No,
of reasons
absolutely.
why.
Absolutely.
But I'm glad you guys are doing well.
Yeah, we're doing well, and eventually we'll probably plan a trip to Maine to go see my parents and stuff, but not for a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, while we're sort of here, I know we talked about this before, and it was just important for you and for me to just sort of at least touch on kind of what's happening in the world right now,
Yeah.
and everything that's going on with
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter and that movement. And
Mhm.
so I just, not to put you on the spot, but I did just want to give you an
Mm.
opportunity just to kind of, give me a little bit of your take on
Mm.
your feelings about what's happening out there.
Um, it's obviously distressing. Everything
Yeah.
that's happening is uh, heartbreaking. Um, and I think that we're all learning a very, very valuable lesson about listening,
Hmm.
um, listening, and standing up and showing support,
Right.
and doing research and informing and educating yourself, um, and taking action, like substantive action.
Yeah.
For myself, just trying to the taking action part is important. That is what I've been trying to focus on, and
Yeah.
anything that I've been discussing with friends or family has been about, how do we take action? How do
Yeah.
we support,
Hmm.
financially, emotionally? How do we hold space? And again, I think listening is the big thing. Listening
Yeah.
to the voices that are out there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
thank you for
Absolutely.
asking. It's
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're exactly right. It is all of these voices are coming together now, and it's about listening and hearing what they're saying, and finding ways to support and take action in any way that we can. So
Yeah.
um, well, like I said, I just wanted to at least acknowledge what was happening in
No,
the world,
absolutely.
and outside all of our, it's so close to home for a lot of people,
Right.
so we wanted to take a moment and just talk about that a little bit. So you're down in Florida, and you've been keeping yourself busy. I've been watching your quarantine cocktail series that's been going on down there.
Well,
If it was
actually,
later in the day, I
yeah,
was going to make one, but I
yeah,
figured only one in the afternoon, so I won't have a cocktail.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so
It's
so how did that all sort of start? Besides just needing a cocktail.
it's so funny. I have um, uh, I've always had a love of. This is going to sound so strange. I've always admired bartenders
Hmm.
from the time I was a kid. I thought being behind that bar was like the coolest thing in the world, especially when, um, you know, they're essentially on a stage,
They
right?
are. Yes.
You've got your audience,
Yeah.
and you've got this person.
Yeah.
So it makes sense
Yeah.
that
You had your
I
cocktail
think that I would be
dreams.
drawn to that.
Yeah. You're Tom
And
Cruise behind the bar.
totally. But now, especially in like places like San Francisco and New York City, and even smaller cities, there is this after the 2000s. There's this cocktail mixologist craft
Yeah.
culture
Yeah.
that I have just absolutely fallen in love with.
Mhm.
And so the past couple of years, I've been just kind of dabbling a little bit.
Yeah.
And then when I was actually earlier this year, I got a job at a place called Beans and Vines up in Inwood in Manhattan, and the owner was basically giving me the keys to the kingdom. He said,
Yeah.
"Look, I want you to create a cocktail menu. I want you to do what you want to do." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so cool." So
Yeah.
it really helped me to kind of lean into that idea and to start to really research the cocktails that I like, and then also doing riffs on them. So it's a very creative practice for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
And hopefully it brings some sort of joy to the people who are enjoying the cocktails. But I found a new circle. There's a Facebook group called Craft Cocktails that I'm a part of now, and it's a really cool group of people who just really delight in making beautiful tasting cocktails. So I'm really into it. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Ray and I, we went to a few years ago for his birthday. We went to Barcelona, and we went to this amazing. It was kind of a speakeasy bar called Cafe Paradiso. I don't know, and you went through a refrigerator door of like this pastrami shop with the storefront, and then it went into this beautiful bar, and amazing craft cocktails. I mean, he got a cocktail that was in like a seashell and came in a treasure chest and was like smoking. And I mean,
wow.
And then we went and sat at the bar and just watched them make cocktails for like 2 hours. It was amazing. I mean, there was smoke and mirrors and rosemary being lit on fire, and just all this stuff was happening. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, if you will allow me, I would love to make you guys some cocktails. I can't do seashells, and
that's okay. I don't need a seashell. But
dry ice and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I could probably light some rosemary on fire.
Right.
But I would love to do that for you guys, because
it's a date. Sounds amazing.
I've actually created some cocktails down here that I'm really, really enjoying, and I named one of them the Ponte Vedra, because that's kind of where we are.
That's kind of where
Ponte Vedra. So.
Awesome. Well, what else have you been doing down there? I know you mentioned some coachings and monologue coachings you've been doing, and theater camp that you have coming up. What's that all about?
Yeah. It was towards the end of last year, I started putting some feelers out online for online teaching programs. Because with all of the experience that I have in the theater from an actor's point of view, but also from a director and a choreographer's point of view, I love sharing knowledge. I love that exchange, and I love passing that knowledge on. And so I did some, I had some feelers out, and I got a response from a place called Dramaversity that was trying to get some things going. I worked with them for a little bit, and then I through my own kind of, my own organization, I'm now doing like Denman Online Theater Studios.
Oh, cool.
And doing monologue study and song study. The theater camp is basically taking place in the month of June.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my monologue study and song study students came over to there. It's generally kids from 11 to 14 in the theater camp. A lot of their theater camps got canceled for June. And so the mothers came to me and said, "Hey, we love what you're doing with the monologue and the song study. Is it possible for you to do a theater camp. And I was like, I hadn't thought about it, but yeah, let me work out a model and what I would
Yeah.
do. And it's really cool. I hope it's giving them an outlet. Number
Yeah.
one, it's taking a little bit of the pressure off of the moms to have to fill everything all the time for their day. It's like, I got them for 2 hours, 4 days a week. Let's go. I'm absolutely willing to do that. But also the things that they learn, I'm hoping, are things that they can take with them, whether or not they decide to go into theater or not.
Sure.
Discipline, focus, concentration, support of the other students, you know, critical assessment, but supportive critical assessment. I've also got some wonderful people coming in to do Q&As on Thursdays. They're coming in to do Q&As with kids for an hour to try to give them to give the kids an example of, these are people who've made it. These are people who work in the business. They can answer questions that you have from a point of view that's totally different than mine. So that's what we're offering. But also private clients I have ongoing, private clients I had in New York City, audition coaching. High school students, college students, professionals. And that's been great. It has been a savior in terms of right now losing all theater jobs for the foreseeable future. I've been incredibly grateful to have that as an outlet for me to keep being able to pay my rent, basically.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's trying to figure out ways to, first of all, stay sane, right? And keep themselves kind of busy, and create, but then also trying to find new ways to generate income, at least for now. I know that's, so much of that is out there for everyone, and just trying to find ways to pay your rent. It's scary. This industry has been hit really hard. I know everyone, it's been hit really hard, but it just, I don't know, I guess it's so close to home, and we know so many people that are struggling, right?
But when you have an industry that is based on the idea of people coming together,
I know.
That is that is not to take away anyone else's struggle, but that is the thing that makes theater special. Is all of us in the same room, experiencing the same thing that is only going to exist once at the same time. So
it's very
we'll
true.
come back. I know we will. I believe so wholeheartedly in our scientists to crack this nut. They always have. They've always figured it out. And I have all the hope in the world that they are going to figure this out. And obviously we need to give them time. That's not saying anything genius on my part. I believe in them, and I believe that it's going to happen, and that we are going to come back.
And I also believe in our industry, you know what I mean? I just feel like as an industry, we're all problem solvers, and we think outside the box, and wherever this lands, we're going to figure it out. You know what I mean? Once we get all the rules and the boundaries,
absolutely,
we're going to figure it out. You know?
I mean, I think that theater people, they do well with parameters.
Right.
Like you give a theater person a limitation.
Right. I'm like, with less, you give me less, I'm going to figure
exactly. It's pretty
if
great.
You give me less, I'm gonna figure out another way to do it.
I mean, Chicago Storefront Theater is a perfect example of how theater makers did just beautiful work with seemingly huge odds against them. So I believe in us. I believe in us to figure it out, and we will do it together. Like we do. So
I know a lot of times when you're up in Ogunquit, you hike a lot while you're up in Ogunquit. Are you able to do any of that while you're down in Florida? or
Yeah,
walking on the beach.
I mean, that has
Hiking.
been, once they opened the
Yeah.
beaches, and if I can just say for this area where we are in Ponte Vedra Beach, and Jacksonville Beach,
Hmm.
um, when they reopened the beaches, people have been really pretty good about, you know, adhering to 6 feet of distance. Don't
Yeah.
place your blanket right next to somebody else,
Hmm.
and spreading out. And
Yeah.
so that has been extremely gratifying and comforting to know that people um, are aware of that.
Yeah.
When we first came down, you really didn't see a lot of people wearing masks, but you saw people wearing masks more and more and more and more. So that was a good thing. But yes, walking the beach is our hiking now. Not a whole bunch of. I mean, I'm sure that there are hiking trails around here, um, but because where we are is so flat, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily think that it would be like woohoo. You know,
Right. Oh, we
that's
made
not
it.
to. Yeah, that's not to judge. But when you're comparing with places like Maine or Arizona
Or
or Utah
Arizona.
or something like that, yeah, you're dealing with, you know, you're a
Yeah.
little I'm a little spoiled.
Yes,
I will say
absolutely.
that. But yeah, but we are enjoying the times that we do get to be out in the sun and have our feet in the sand and things like that. But
Great, great.
yeah,
So you've been involved with a number of productions at the Playhouse, obviously. Was your first one, was that Spam a Lot, or was there one before that?
Crazy for You.
Crazy for You was before that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Crazy for You, I think was 2007, I
Okay. All
believe.
right. So it's Crazy
Um,
for You, Spam a Lot,
yep,
um, and White
Music
Christmas,
Man.
Music Man. You directed and choreographed Music Man, right? Or just
Yeah.
choreographed?
Oh, are we talking about creative team or actor? We can talk
Well,
about
we're going
whatever
to
we
talk
want.
about both. So actor wise, you
Actor wise, it was, yeah, Crazy for You, Spam a Lot, White Christmas, Annie.
Annie, yeah. And
Yeah.
then director
Creative team,
or
yeah,
choreographer or director
yeah.
choreographer wise, it
That would
was.
be choreographed Music Man, directed and choreographed Damn Yankees, choreographed West Side Story,
Hmm.
and then directed and choreographed American in Paris.
Fantastic. We'll talk about a
Yeah.
couple of those. I want to touch on West Side Story first because just because I actually didn't see the production in Maine, but I snuck my way into the designer run in New York just because. Well, I know Trey Compton well,
Oh,
and so yes, I love Trey Compton, so I
yeah.
know him, and so I knew that you were approaching it, creating your own choreography, and I was like I need to be in that room and see what's going on, and
Mm.
it was just incredible. It really
Oh my
was. I mean,
gosh,
just
thank
to
you.
sort of gush for a second, it just uh, I've done the show twice with the original choreography a while ago, and to see someone approach it in a new way and in a really wonderful way, like paying homage to the original production, but it was just gorgeous, Jeffrey. It really
Thank
was.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
mean,
I
you had
appreciate that.
clearly, obviously, you prep and you prepare for everything you do, but it was just, yeah, it was just clear you had done a lot of work and there was a lot of love and heart that went into it. So I don't know if you want to talk about
Well,
it a little bit.
yeah, the opportunity was, and BT McNichol, who directed it,
Yeah.
was incredibly supportive of me. We had a lot of talks about it.
Hmm.
I love Jerome Robbins. I love his work. I never worked with him, so I didn't know him personally, but the creative output is something that has been a bit of a um, touchstone for me in
Hmm.
terms of what kind of art I want to create
Yeah.
and what excites me.
Yeah.
Analyzing his work has been a big part of me developing as a choreographer.
Hmm.
And I believe strongly in um, the right of every artist to be able to interpret a work.
Yeah.
And while I absolutely think that, you know, Jerome Robbins' West Side Story is perfection, I wanted to have my opportunity to do what I would do with it, and also honor his his attention and his artistry and his aesthetic to it as well, because because it's been so meaningful to me. So that's what I was trying for.
Yeah.
Because and to be able to create something as if, I mean, this is going to sound so, I don't know, this might sound weird, but I always, when I was in the room creating the stuff with my assistants, Daryl Getman and Ashley Marinelli, I wanted to believe that Jerome Robbins was in the room with me, and I was doing what I was doing, but with his influence, I guess. Not really putting great words to it, but ultimately, when you have that Leonard Bernstein music, it is incredibly inspiring. And I feel in many ways, ever since I had become aware of West Side Story, I was in one way or the other creating a West Side Story in my head somewhere, you know, and then I was given the opportunity to actually do that. So I was very grateful that Brad gave me the opportunity to do that, and that BT was so supportive of it, and that the cast and the other creatives were so excited about what we were trying to do and what we were making. That was huge. That was really huge. So.
Well, I wish I had seen the full production, but like I said, to see it in sort of that raw form up close and in the designer run, it was just, it was really an incredible experience. So I just wanted to bring that up. Yeah. So your first show was Crazy for You said, at the Playhouse, right?
Yes.
Yeah. As an actor, you played Bobby Child, which I'm a huge fan of Crazy for You. I love that show.
Oh my gosh.
I was just texting Angie Schworer the other day, and we somehow got into a Crazy for You conversation, because I performed in the show twice and knew a couple people that she knew. So, but it's such a wonderful piece. And so, I mean, your first time at the Playhouse, you obviously, I mean, you've been back many times in your family, so you obviously have an affinity for Ogunquit and us. So what was it about, you know, Ogunquit and the town, the Playhouse, that kind of has drawn you in and keeps bringing you back?
Well, I think you just pretty much touched on all of it. I will also say that those are in the early years of Brad's tenure, and you could tell his passion. You could tell how much he cared about what he was doing, and what position he was putting the theater in for the future. You could see, you know, he wasn't like spouting his vision all the time, but you could see it. You could see that he had a plan. And wanting to be a part of that was really, for me, what it was all about, because you know, the Playhouse was in a tricky place before he got there, and he, you know, he and I think Sally, you know, they really helped put Ogunquit back where it needed to be, and even farther, you know. So watching him do that and seeing how much he cared about the productions, cared about the actors, cared about the creatives, and giving them a space to do that's really one of the main reasons why I love working at Ogunquit. But the audience, I mean, come on. And then the whole vibration of Ogunquit as just a place in the country is, it's unlike anything anywhere else. And I mean, I don't know if this is presumptuous of me, but when I go back to Ogunquit, I do feel like I'm at home. I do feel like, oh, I'm back. Yay. I can breathe. I can breathe
Yeah.
for a moment because I'm back at the Seafarer and in my room and,
Right.
smelling the sea air and
Yes.
brushing dust or brushing sand out of my shoes and doing all of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Playhouse,
Yeah.
all the memories and all of the energy of the productions and the wonderful people who have performed and created in that building means the world to me. To be a part of that and to be one of the names, on the wall or whatever,
Yeah.
is very meaningful to me because it's a wonderful, wonderful place.
Yeah. Yes.
So.
And that's one of the reasons when I got the job in 2015, why, again, just being part of that. I grew up in Maine, so I've seen the Playhouse go through all of its ebbs and flows and all of its different incarnations. And just, even that first time, my first show was Sister Act, and that first Tech Week and that opening, when I kind of experienced what it was, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I knew what I was heading into as far as the job goes, but then when you're in the midst of it and it happens and you see the audience and the people and all the things, you're like, oh, I get what this is now. It is really an incredible place. And I feel like I'm still young enough in my time there that I can say that. But it was definitely exciting to be a part of.
Yeah.
So we brought you back for An American in Paris to direct and choreograph that, to take a new look at it for regional theaters, and people are still talking about that production. We did one of these checking-ins with Clyde a few weeks ago. He played Jerry Mulligan, and it was, again, just something that you, again, just put all of your heart and soul into, and it showed in every aspect of it. So I'd love to, put you on the spot, but it would be great. So when Brad Kenny says to you, okay, I want you to come do An American in Paris and take a new take on it, put some of the Gene Kelly back into it, what do you say to him when he says that?
Yeah, I remember we had that lunch in New York City, and that's pretty much what he said.
Yeah.
And what I love about Brad is Brad asks you a question that he already knows the answer to, and hopes that, I don't know, I don't want to speak for him, but he said, what would you do with it? What would you, if you were given the reins to to take on American in Paris, what would you do with it? And that was one of the things that I thought of immediately was, well, the thing that I love about the movie is the contrast between the style of dance of Gene Kelly and the style of dance of Leslie Caron.
Yeah.
And the beautiful bilingualness that happens sometimes, but most of the time, they're two different languages. And it's a very American language of jazz and tap, and a very French language of ballet. And that was the first thing. As I said, I would put them in their respective corners and lean into that, so that everything that Jerry did was ultimately going to be, at least the first step was always going to be from an American jazz tap musical theater world. And Leslie, or not Leslie Caron's, but Lise's first step was always going to be ballet. And then let's see where they blend. Let's see where they can start to do a cultural exchange as they fall in love. And that was the first place. That was before I had read the script. Then when Brad sent me the script and I was able to, kind of do the deep dive, I saw some places where I thought that there could be a different directorial take on what was happening and how it was happening in the script. For instance, the Henri track. In terms of, I knew that I wanted Henri, and Henri has to be a viable suitor for Lise.
Yeah.
That's super important. They all have to be. Adam, Henri, and Jerry all have to be. That's part of the book. But it was very important for me to distinguish them, and to really distinguish, articulate their differences very, very strongly. So now you have Henri, who is French, but who wants to be a song and dance man.
Yeah.
And so I think what we did with Stairway to Paradise, by not necessarily taking it off into the fantasy, but keeping it in the room, keeping it there, bringing the parents in at a different point. I hope it was successful in getting the audience to feel sympathy for Henri and for what he was, what his journey is. But it was things like that, and there were a bunch more, and then the ballet at the end, really putting it in Lisa's hands and having it be from her point of view, and having it be her choice about what she does with her life, as opposed to waiting for three guys to make decisions about who's going to be with her. I didn't really have any interest in investigating that. I wanted her to feel empowered and feel that that she didn't have to just wait around, that she could make that decision. So yeah, those are the big ticket items.
Well, it was really lovely, and all of your vision, the turntable, how the show flowed, all of that. You know what I mean?
David Arsenault.
Yeah.
David Arsenault. Oh,
he brought up the turntable.
Well, we were talking about the set. He had already done sketches, and they were already beautiful, kind of evoking, the Eiffel Tower, but not so on the nose that we couldn't expand into other places. And it was already so beautiful. And we discussed it. We were like, okay, well, this show needs to flow. I mean, I said, I'm going to be dancing every transition, all of it's just got to move. There's so many locations.
Yeah.
And he goes, I think that they might have a turntable. And he goes, have you ever worked on a turntable? And I said, no. He goes, do you want to? And I said, I don't know. Do I? And he goes, well, let's see if they have one, and then I'll let you know. And in the ensuing hours, when he was trying to find out from Jeff Dolan whether they still had the turntable, I think it was from Mamma Mia, right?
Yeah, that's when we first got it. Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I've worked on a turntable before, and as an actor, not as a director choreographer. I said, this could make, I mean, my mind just started, like all of the questions that I had about transitions were being answered by a turntable. And so when we got back on the phone, I was like, David, I really want to lean into this. And then I think shortly after, I talked to Karen Parlato and said, what is this going to do for you? And she's like, this is going to make my life a nightmare, but this is going to be amazing. So everybody knew that we were adding to the load, the creative load that we were going to be, and it just meant that we had to have our ducks in a row even more. Yeah. And boy, what a return on investment that was, because I really don't want to work on a show without a turntable anymore. I just love them. I love them.
Yeah.
So that was a really wonderful collaborative decision.
Yeah, it was a great addition. I mean, in general, it's so hard, especially even though An American in Paris is not a contemporary show, it's still a new musical, right? And it's so easy for Broadway to be able to push a button and transition in and out of scenes so quickly, and then all the rest of us have to get a little scrappy and work with less and figure out how to do it. And so it was a really wonderful solution to how to make the show flow and how to make it really just be seamless. It was just seamless. So it was, again, just
and
wonderful.
just to put a final point on that, I don't know how we do what we did without Karen and Daniel, Jeff Dolan, like what you said before, problem solvers.
Yeah.
Yes, we came in with what we thought it could be,
Mm-hmm.
which is what you always want to do. You want to at least hand over, you know, an idea of how it's going to go creatively and logistically. But then the people who came to us and said, either that can't happen, what else do you want to do? Or that can't happen and we have a solution. I mean, we couldn't have done it. We couldn't have done it without all of those people. It's one of the main things that made that experience so gratifying.
Yeah.
Was watching every department just jump into the pool and go, all right, let's make this happen. It was just, it was so one of my favorites.
Great. Cool. I have so many things I feel like I want to talk to you about. And we've been talking for 45 minutes. Well, I mean, I told you this yesterday before when we were texting that the musical theater geek in me just wanted to, you know, just find a little bit about, you know, your background and how did you dive into this crazy world that we're all in? Like, what got you started?
Well, you know, as a young person, my parents didn't know anything about theater, so they didn't have it on their radar. And if I showed a certain acumen for theatrical pursuits, I don't think that they necessarily knew what to do with that. And that's not a criticism. Mm-hmm. They were just parents. They were just being parents.
You grew up in upstate New York? Sorry.
I grew up in Buffalo. Okay. And I found my way there, you know. I found my way there either in school doing school plays, or, you know, one of my cousins was in the theater business and found my way to a show that she was in, and she was not much older. She would hate me saying that. She was older than me. And so she kind of helped me, you know, into that world. But what really changed everything was when I went to high school in Buffalo called St. Joseph's Collegiate Institute. And there was a wonderful music director there named Jim Dia, who took a lot of pride in the musical department. And the singing and the music department, all of that, and created wonderful musicals that were pretty well renowned in the Buffalo area as being one of the best high school productions. He hired people who were professionals to come in and work with his kids. One of the people he hired to work with us was a director choreographer named Lynn Curtio Fermato. Between Jim and Lynn, they became my mentors. And Lynn really plucked me out of the back and started giving me choreography, something I had never done. I had never danced. And she showed me that I had a talent for dance, but I just didn't know what I was doing, and I needed training. Jim was really the vocal and voice, definitely, but he also offered to a couple of us who showed, you know, a certain advanced interest in musical theater. He did a musical theater class for us after school where we would watch a musical and analyze it. And I think back and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's the beginning of my directing career. That is, you know, that's right where it is. So I owe everything to them. They gave me so much opportunity and so much space to learn, and so much just throwing knowledge at me. So I fell in love with musical theater in high school. And then I went to college for musical theater, University of Buffalo, where I specialized in dance because I needed to catch up. And then I came to, after working on cruise ships for a year and a half, I came to New York City and started working. Was very, very, very grateful to start working on Broadway early on, and to have, you know, a nice career doing Broadway shows, but also being able to invest in my own projects and write my own pieces and choreograph, and had wonderful advice given to me by the people I was working with. Mainly, don't let anyone else decide what you're going to be. If you want to be an actor, director, writer, choreographer, artistic director, whatever, don't let anyone tell you that you can't be all of those things. You absolutely can. It's going to be more difficult, and it's going to mean that you have to do more work, but don't let anyone else tell you that you can only be one thing. That, oh, you can't do all of that. You know, that's going to be confusing to people if you want to be an actor and a director. It's not. And I have been for the past couple of years now. And people know that when I'm in a room and I'm an actor, I have an actor baseball cap on, and metaphorical. Although I have thought about doing that, literally put it. And then when I'm a director, I'm a director, and that I respect those parameters, and I respect those, both of those professions and responsibilities, and I love that, and I love that it has been harder work, but that's okay. That doesn't bother me. So I've just had a wonderful time of it, you know, basically following where I want to go and doing projects that mean something. Yes, of course, you know, there have been periods of time where it's been challenging, and where you have to make a decision between two things that overlap, and you try to make the best decision that you can. But I'm very grateful for my career thus far.
Thus far, it's not over. It's not over.
Yeah.
What was your first Broadway show that you were in as a performer?
How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying, the Matthew Broderick version. Lilius White and Ron Carroll, Jeff Blumenkrantz. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I saw you, but I did see
I was a swing. Yeah, okay. I was a swing, and I understudied Bud Frump mostly, and then for a moment I understudied Finch as well. Oh, it was so great. I loved that show.
It was so good.
Oh, it was, you know, it was still coming on the heels of that Guys and Dolls.
Yes.
You know, the Dodgers breathing such great life into that Nathan Lane Guys and Dolls.
It was so bright and vibrant, and like it was.
And you had all those wonderful character actors, Jonathan Freeman and Ron Carroll and
Victoria
Victoria Clark and Megan Mullally.
Megan Mullally.
I
just remember just Megan Mullally for a second, just beveling for her life for that entire show. Yep. I didn't know who Megan Mullally was. I don't think anyone really did at that point. But had she done Grease before that?
She did Grease. Yeah, she did Grease. So it was totally her rise, because then after How to Succeed, I think that's when she moved out to LA, and then Will and Grace, and I think she did an episode of Seinfeld, you know, and all of that. So,
but every time she stopped moving, she was beveled and pulled up. I was like, Who is that?
And that incredible voice, she's such a great singing voice. Like,
it was really a good remember.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Yeah. I enjoyed it a lot.
I loved every minute of that production.
Yeah. And you were in the producers and on Broadway. That was the original cast of that, right?
Original cast. Yeah. I was the blind violinist, Scott the choreographer, FDR, and the little wooden boy, Donald Dinsmore.
Yes.
Yeah.
The wooden boy.
So, a little wooden boy. Oh my gosh, what a time! What a time that was. It was, you know, hard to be completely aware of it as you're going through it, and so grateful for it afterwards. And again, just what a cast! What an incredible group of people who take comedy deadly seriously, you know. But yeah, it was definitely, you know, once in a lifetime experience to be part of that, to be a small part of that production and the building of that show, in such great hands creatively, you know, and being able to watch and learn from so many people. Gary Beach, obviously, a wonderful late Gary Beach, and Roger Bart and Brad, and obviously Matthew and Nathan. Yeah. I mean, it goes without saying.
This
and
roster.
Katie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Angie and I, Angie Schwarr and I
Did you
were,
do the show with Angie ever?
yeah,
Okay.
we were both in the original
Oh,
company,
right.
and
Angie was.
I was one of the understudies for Bloom, and she was one of the understudies for not Luba. My God, Ula.
Yeah.
I'm mixing my shows up, and so we got to do understudy rehearsal together all the time, and it was great. It was great. Such a wonderful group of people too.
Awesome.
Yes.
I know we've been talking forever. I swear we'll wrap up soon.
Oh, good.
You know, another thing I just wanted to touch on was Yank for a second. Was the show Yank, just because I was a big fan of it. I'm still a big fan of it. I saw it at the York. I know Igor and Trey, and so I was kind of following the trajectory of it. So I just, you know, it really is kind of a special piece of theater, I think. It
is.
And you know, I had hoped it was going to continue its life, and maybe it still will. But I wanted to touch on it at least with you from your perspective, like what that show was like for you and your thoughts on it.
I love that show. I think what the show that David and Joe Zelnick wrote, they always would say that they wanted to write the show that Rodgers and Hammerstein couldn't write in their time. And I think that they 100% achieved that. They wrote a show that honors that tradition of musical theater being a place to question and to pose issues. Smart theater, smart musical theater, nutritious theater. And I love that show. You know, whether a show gets to go to Broadway or not, as you and I think are pretty firmly aware, there are so many factors. Whether it's a good show is one of those factors. Sadly, it's not the factor that often is the most prominent or the one that wins out. And our timing and the confluence of events that have to happen for a show to lift off into that sphere are complicated and multifaceted. And Yank was a situation, I think, where just the right chemistry wasn't quite there. Takes nothing away, I believe, from the show. I think the show stands on its own, and anybody who's familiar with the show will know that it is a beautiful, beautiful piece of work. But it is about more. It's always about more than that.
There's a lot of stars that have to line up.
Oh yeah.
In order
to
get
think of all the shows that you and I know that deserve to be on Broadway that haven't gotten there yet, for one reason or another, or probably 5 reasons or another. I love that show. Love that show.
Well, like I said, I just wanted to bring it up for a second, just because I'm a big fan of it. So the last thing I want to talk about, just to bring it back to kind of your personal projects, is I just wanted to your dance company, Denman Theater and Dance Company that you started. Do you want to just talk a little bit about, you know, obviously it seems like a natural step for you, but how did this idea come for you to decide to create a dance company?
Well, really, the projects that I was working on myself, I was seeing a thread. I was seeing a common thread, and one of them, the most prominent piece that I had just started to work on at the end of 2015. I happened to be working with a choreographer named Liz Lerman. She's I think she would be regarded as a postmodern choreographer. And she is one of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with. And I told her that I had this idea that had not been really fully realized in any way, not even on the page, of doing a piece about the Donner Party, which is a topic that I'm very, very passionate about. And I told her a little bit about it. And because of the piece that she and I were working on, which was her piece, which was about soldiers in the Civil War juxtaposed with soldiers in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and their experience, I could see that what she was doing, she was dealing with these really deep philosophical questions through movement and text. And so I said, I think that this is the way in. And I didn't realize that, but I think this is the way in. And she said, get into the studio and move. Get into the studio, start to move. Don't question anything, just get moving. And so I did that and found some music that spoke to me, and I created the first piece that for the Donner Party project. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, all of the other pieces that I'm trying to build all have movement at their base. And this might be a way to create an umbrella under which to present these as my pieces. And so that's what I did. I created Denman Theater and Dance Company to create theatrical works that use movement and dance as a primary storytelling device. The Donner Party is the one that has received right now the most attention and is the farthest along. We're looking for a theater to co-produce with us. David Lamoureux, who was the music director for An American in Paris, has written this beautiful score. It's not a musical. It is a theater dance piece, meaning we use music, movement, and text to tell the story of the Donner Party. And my co-writer Joy Tomasco, she's been with me for 4 years working on it, and I love this piece. It means the world to me. It is about what happens when people are put into dire circumstances and how do they behave. And sometimes it's not black and white. Sometimes it is more nuanced than just these are horrible people or these are great people. It's somewhere in the middle. And that's the kind of theater that's interesting to me. And all of our pieces try to do that. They try to ask questions that are in the shaded gray areas rather than the black and the white. So, yeah.
Amazing. And is that the primary focus for the company, or do you have any other pieces you're working on at the same time as that? Or
one of the other pieces that we're working on is called The 40 Deuce, which is based. It's a play based on the original novel 42nd Street, and it uses a cappella tap dancing threaded throughout. But it is the book, the original novel 42nd Street is very, very different from the movie and the musical. It's got some of the same. It's got the same characters. You see your Julian Marsh, your Dorothy Brock, your Peggy Sawyer, your Billy Lawler, but they are very, very different. And they are all and this is not a judgment on 42nd Street as a piece, because I think it's a beautiful musical and I think it does exactly what the writers intended for it to do. It is escapism at its best, and it is a fantastic musical. What I was interested in was taking a look at the author's, Bradford Rope's original intent of these almost pulp characters, these theatrical, these three-dimensional pulp characters who, when you're making the movie of 42nd Street in 1933, there are some rules that you have to abide by.
Yes.
There are some things that you can't talk about, and actions that you can't report.
Yeah.
My interest was to look at those, because now we can. Now we can talk about those things. We can talk about homosexuality on stage. We can talk about, I don't know necessarily that the movie or the musical want to talk about adultery. We can talk about that in a theatrical setting, in a play setting. And I wanted to see how the characters stood up to that that kind of analyzation. And we also have some other aspects of it, the role of or how African American men were regarded in 1931 in the Broadway world, and the environment that they had to try and exist in. Yeah. I've threaded that in. That's not a part of the book, but it was important for me to put that in,
right, yeah.
Because they are the unseen people in the book and the movie and the musical. I don't want to speak for the musical because the musical is not my, but they are the unseen people in that if you take the camera of the book and you widen it, they are on the outskirts of that. And I wanted to try to put them into the camera lens.
Great. Well, I know we've talked about that project a couple of times, 42, so I look forward to getting a chance to see glimpses of it as you put it out into the world and all that, because it sounds exciting. So
yeah, it's definitely a passion project, and it has we've had development over the years, the past 3 years on it, and it's very exciting, but it wants to be done right. You know, it is not a piece that I can rush. And I'm really trying to be very, very, very specific and very cognizant of the story that I'm trying to tell. So,
well, great.
Yeah.
Well, Jeffrey, I've talked to you for over an hour, so
it's been great.
I told you it was only going to be 40 minutes, but it's been so great, and I could keep talking to you forever. Just diving into your thought process and all of that. So, but I really appreciate you taking the time today. And it was so great to see your face, and like I said, a new face. And,
and I hope everybody in Ogunquit land and the subscribers and the fans of the Playhouse are doing well. I hope everyone is safe and healthy and keeping a small amount of hope, through all of this, or maybe a big amount of hope. I mean, I don't want to tell you how much hope you're going to feel, but getting the Playhouse and getting back in there in a tech process and creating again is, I think that when we're all allowed to do that again, I can't even believe how great we're all going to feel and how much we're going to appreciate it.
Yeah.
That I'm looking forward to that. And thank you for doing this. This has been really, really great.
No problem at all. It's been a great time. I'm glad we could chat today.
Great.
Stay safe down in Florida, and
thank you.
I will enjoy the rest of your day. It was good to talk to you.